and then and obviously, I'm sure you have seen plenty of commercials everywhere, whether that be the Army, Navy, the Air Force, the U.S. Marines, and started last year, signed in by the president into law, Space Force. So you're probably seeing some of those commercials for the Space Force as well. So those 5 branches of service, uniform service, are under the jurisdiction of the Department of Defense. You may, I'm sure, have heard of the U.S. Coast Guard. The U.S. Coast Guard is actually not part of the Department of Defense. They are part of the Department of Homeland Security. There's another service, uniform service, that very small, about approximately 200 and change perhaps. It's called the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Commission Corps, under the Department of Commerce. And they're the ones that actually map out the ocean floors to see what's going on there, and also the hurricanes that's coming upon us. The hurricane season is actually here. So they do that. And then my branch of service, the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps, we are under the jurisdiction of Department of Health and Human Services. And of course, all the branches of service are under the executive branch. Now, who actually leads the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps? It is a 4 stars admiral, and at this time is Admiral Brett Gerard, and he is a physician. He is also the Assistant Secretary of Health, basically the left hand or right hand person of the Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services. And and you're welcome to take a look at his biography on the website that I provide at the very bottom of this slide. So he's the leader. He's the 4 stars admiral. And then in terms of who actually executes the policies and what have you, it is the Surgeon General, which is also known as the nation's doctor. It is the Surgeon General is a 3 stars admiral, which is the vice admiral. We are given naval rankings. And so at this time, it's Vice Admiral or Dr. Jerome Adams. He's also a physician as well. And he's also the 20th Surgeon General of the United States. You're welcome to take a look at his biography that I provided at the bottom of the slide too, if you would so wish. Now, just to have some similar comparisons to the civilian world, think of the 4-star admiral as the CEO, if you will, and then the 3-star vice admiral as the COO of a corporation. Think of it that way. I guess it's probably a little bit easier to for comparison's sake. Now, in terms of pharmacist officers, we have over 1,000 pharmacist officers within the U.S. Public Health Service, which is a lot. We actually are led by a 2 stars admiral, Rear Admiral Ty Bingham. He is a pharmacist, and he has a 4 years term of leading the what we call pharmacy category. And you're welcome to take a look at his biography that's in the bottom of the slide there. So who are we? We are about approximately 6,100 officers strong. That includes physicians, dentists, pharmacists, optometrists, and many other different healthcare professional, or should I say professions, as well as research and science professions, engineering professions, environmental health professions, and just so also actually this picture that's in the slide is actually I'm in there. I was a special assistant to the former Surgeon General that you can see with Dr. Oz there at the Oz TV show. And he was talking about the opiate crisis there. And so since he was visiting from DC, I was his assistant while he was in New York City. So And of course, our mission, and I'm sure you know your mission for the SUNY Buffalo School of Pharmacy there. And so our mission is very straightforward. Uh, it is to protect, promote, and advance the health and safety of our nation. And may I add, not only our nation, but the world. We have um, officers that are stationed overseas, and we have also officers that have deployed overseas, myself included. And as you can see from this year's pandemic, we are truly a global village. So whatever that's going on outside of the United States will eventually come here. And of course, this year's pandemic has proven that pretty obviously. So, and we do have a very proud long tradition. We have been around the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps, or should I say its predecessors, have been around since 1798. And when it was signed into law by, at that time, the second president of the United States, which was President John Adams. And we have served during the Civil War, whatever which war you name it, where we have been in it, we have served. We have served in it, and also for those who are interested in history, for those that have been to New York City, and been a tourist for a day. I have visited the Ellis Island, which is very close by where the Statue of Liberty is. So what happened is that before around 1900 or so, or before that time frame, the immigrants that came from Europe, their very first stop will be at Ellis Island, where the health screenings takes place to ensure that they are healthy in coming to the country, and who screened them, or who provided health screenings at Ellis Island. It was the Public Health Service Commission Corps officers that did those. And speaking of which, I actually was on Ellis Island a few years back, whereby the National Park Service provided a personal tour for those that were able to attend. And it was a very interesting tour. Some of the facilities still stands to this day. Of course, they're pretty much like ruins now, but they're still standing. And of course, they're not being used for any purposes in that regard, but it's more like a museum in that way. So what do we do? How do we serve? Well, we definitely perform clinical duties as a clinical pharmacist. And of course, all of you who are in the school right now to get those clinical training and education, that's what we do. That's what we are trained to do, right? So once we come out, as in the Public Health Service Commission Corps, your training is put into good use. And obviously, you are going to be an educator for the public, and providing that the trainings that you get right now and upcoming, and you're going to be more than qualified to educate the public regarding the public health. Obviously, developing and implementing public health programs, that is definitely crucial, especially, I'm sure, as you can see, in the midst of the pandemic that's going on. Where do they get their testing? Well, in a number of places, but one of the places is the pharmacy. That's where the testing of COVID-19 administration is taking place and the testing take place. That's a public health program, right? So we also do lead public health agencies. In fact, we have a rear admiral that's leading the Indian Health Service Agency, when the federal government, two stars admiral, and also, believe it or not, when the FDA was created, when the CDC was created, those agencies were originally led by the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps officers. And last but not least, we deploy in disaster response efforts as part of multidisciplinary teams. I've been on multiple deployments, and I was just actually deployed earlier this year for specifically COVID-19, and many deployments prior to that too. So definitely that's part of being in the service. Where do we serve? A lot of different places. In fact, we have more places than this slide can fit. Just any agencies within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, including, like I said, FDA, CDC, CMS, NIH. Some of those agents I'm sure you are very well familiar with. We also actually have officers serving in other departments, such as the Department of Homeland Security, where they're still doing health screenings for those that are coming across the borders. They're done by the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps officers. We have, in fact, an officer that's permanently stationed in the U.S. Coast Guard Academy in Connecticut. There's a pharmacist officer there in the academy, and that's providing care for the cadets there, or should I say the midshipmen there. We also have officers stationed in the Department of Defense. They're putting together programs, public health programs, for active duty personnel. We have actually a good number of pharmacists there as well. We are all over the map. We have officers in the Department of Justice. I was actually stationed, or should I say detailed, to the Department of Justice at one time, and actually provided pharmacy care for federal inmates. So, and what have you, and on and on and on and on. So we have a lot of places to serve. And of course, with this map, as you can see, there are tons and tons of locations throughout the country, and also Puerto Rico, different territories, actually around the globe. In fact, we have, I think about approximately 600 sites that we are located in, so across the globe. And of course, this map is just not enough space. How can you qualify to become a U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps officer? Well, you do have to be a citizen, because obviously you have to clear a background check. You have to be less than 44 years of age, and be able to be medically and physically qualified. Having a degree, a pharmacy degree, well, definitely, obviously, at SUNY Buffalo, where you are currently at, in getting your pharmacy education, definitely gives you that qualifying degree. And you do also need to have a pharmacy license. You don't have to have a pharmacy license. You don't have to have multiple pharmacy licenses in order to be in the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps. I only have one. In fact, my license is actually not even New York State. My license is actually in Massachusetts State. So, but you just need one to practice on a federal government level. And I would highly encourage you to take a look at our website, usphs.gov. It was actually new, just recent, this past, actually, yeah, was it yesterday or over the weekend? The website was newly came out. There's a brand new version of the website that came out, and actually I had to change some slides because of that. Brand new, you're welcome to take a look at our Facebook webpage, the social media platform that we use on a fairly frequent basis. I actually used to be a part of that Facebook team, and I post multiple pharmacy-related postings on there. And definitely as a student, I will highly encourage you to take a look also at the very bottom of this slide, where it tells more in depth about some of the things that we'll be discussing in relating to you being a student. What are some of the student opportunities that's available to you? Well, first there is what we call the Junior Co-Step program. The Junior Co-Step program is a paid summer internship program whereby it can last anywhere from 1 month up to 3 months, depending on your availability. Because in the application, you can put down what would be the time frame that you will be interested or available for the Junior Co-Step program. So it really depends on how you apply, what you put in the application form. And it definitely, it's like I stressed before, it is a paid summer internship program, so you do get a salary. And there is definitely no obligation whatsoever after you graduate, because like I said, it's a summer internship program. And so, but you do have to meet certain physical, medical, and background check requirements. That's pretty standard stuff nowadays, I think. Just to provide some quick stats there, back in 2018, there were 227 applicants, but it was not only for the profession of pharmacy, it was multiple different professions. Of course, pharmacy actually is one of the three. So the other two, as you can see, is environmental health and also engineering. So but of course, pharmacy always leads the way. So we had the maximum amount of applicants that were accepted successfully, which was 23 in 2018. And you're welcome to take a look at the details in the website that I provided at the very bottom. And what are some of the benefits of getting into the Junior Co-Step program? You are given a military rank. You are given a rank of what we call O1 or ensign. That is a naval ranking. And your pay is actually your salary, your monthly salary is based on your military rank. There is also a housing allowance that is tax-free. That is part of your monthly salary. You are given also vacation days, believe it or not. Even though it's only a summer internship, you're given vacation days that you can accrue. Which is 2.5 days per month, which you can accrue up to 7.5 days for a total of 3 months, right? You're also given, if you're sick, you're also given to take sick leave if you are sick. There's also health care that's provided for summer interns. And also, if you do choose to decide to apply to become a U.S. Public Health Service Commissioned Corps officer, after you graduate and you get in, the time that you were in the Junior Co-Step program count towards your pay, promotion, and retirement credits. So it's actually, I would say, pretty cool. And just to give you some numbers, for those of you that like numbers, so I put it down for this year. So let's say if you applied last year, 2019, and you got accepted into the Junior Co-Step program for this year in 2020, and obviously I'm basing it out of SUNY Buffalo zip code, you would be military rank of 01. If you were participating this year during this summer, the pay will come out to $3,000 and change for monthly pay, and then also provided non-taxable a basic allowance of substance, which is basically towards food, clothing, things of that nature, and also a housing allowance as well, depending if you're single or married and things of that nature. So on average, you will actually get $5,000 per month for the Junior Co-Step program, which I think as a student, I think that's excellent in my mind. So just for those of you who are interested in knowing figures, so the numbers here is actually all online, and so I figure instead of crunching your own numbers, I'll crunch it for you. So Now, for those of you, there's also another program called the Senior Co-Step program, which is definitely a little bit different from the Junior Co-Step program. The Senior Co-Step program is what I would call more like ROTC. For those of you that are not familiar with ROTC, it's a program for the other service, the branch of services. You go in for a college degree, and then after you graduate from college, you have to give back. There is a obligation that you have to provide to the branch of service after you graduate. So very similar in that regard. The Senior Co-Step is kind of like an early commissioned officer program whereby you can go and apply, and if you get in, you get paid the entire year, your final year of your pharmacy education. And so you are given, again, also a military rank, like I said, of 01. And that, but the obligation is that after, if you get accepted, you give back. And the give back period is 2 years, 24 months. It's the day after you graduate where the time frame begins. So again, providing some quick facts there. For those that applied into the Senior Co-Step program, there were 86 applicants back in 2017. 3 different professional categories, what we call it, or professions. One was nursing, the other one's pharmacy, the other one is a physician assistant. And of course, pharmacy leads the way again. We had the maximum amount of applicants that were accepted into the Senior Co-Step program. You're welcome to take a look at the website, which I provide at the very bottom of the slide. And why would you be interested in applying for the Senior Co-Step program? Well, like I said earlier, you're given a military ranking, I also want to stress that there is you are given a guaranteed position. So you are guaranteed to find work after you graduate. In fact, you don't even have to find it. The U.S. federal government find one for you. So you don't have to think about, oh, where should I work? What should I do? You don't have to worry any of that because it's all done for you if you get accepted into this Senior Co-Step program. Just like the Junior Co-Step program, there's housing allowance that's provided to you. There's also free dental care, free health care, and the privileges and benefits are all the same. Even though you are in your final year of school, you are treated as if you are active duty service. So all the benefits and privileges you get, even though you're a full-time student. Again, for those that are interested in crunching the numbers, pretty much the same slide and as the earlier one for the Junior Co-Step program. But also I provided there the annual amount, basically your annual salary while you're going to a final year of pharmacy school. Again, being a full-time student, I will say that this is not bad at all, and that this is your salary, so you can use however you want it, however you wish it, whether that be for anything and what have you. So it's your salary. So now there is a deadline. The deadline for both the Junior Co-Step and the Senior Co-Step program for this year ends on September 30th, 2020. Every year, the deadline changes. So so that's why I specifically requested with SUNY Buffalo to see if I could do this presentation with you at this time, because if I were to provide this presentation sometime in the fall, most likely the deadline would have passed already. So, so I wanted to make sure that all of you had the opportunity to apply if you so interested. and that I will highly recommend that you do not wait until the end of September to apply, because there are definitely, it's a lengthy uh, application, background check, health check, dental check, whatever, all these different requirements. And it takes time to fill out each requirement in the application form itself. So if you have any additional specific questions that you have, you're welcome to email costep@hhs.gov, which I provided at the end of this slide here. So you're welcome to email headquarters on that. For those of you that have student loans, which like I said earlier at the beginning of this presentation, I have a 6-figure student loan debt that I had to pay back, which I did, and I did pay it back. And so there are 2 different programs. There might be more, but the 2 that I have some familiarity is one from NIH, the National Institute of Health, the Student Loan Repayment Program. If you were to be, after you graduate, if you were to be in one of these centers in NIH, or should I say one of the NIH-funded programs, you are welcome to apply to the NIH Student Loan Repayment Program, where it's $50,000 of student loan debt per year. Being that you have a PharmD, which is a doctoral level degree, you're eligible to apply for that program, like I said, if you fit the criteria. The other program that I actually personally used is the Indian Health Service Student Loan Repayment Program, because at one point I was actually stationed within the Indian Health Service on the West Coast. And I did utilize this program, and I'm very grateful for. You're given $20,000 per year to a 2-year commitment, so a total of $40,000, and you are able to use that amount towards your student loans, which I did that. So, but of course, it has to be for your student loans and not for fancy cars or anything of that sort, which then you will be in trouble. Now, for those of you who are, of course, who are students right now, I do want to inform you of a scholarship that you're eligible to apply right now. In fact, this is the George Archambault Scholarship out of the APHA Foundation. And the deadline is on December 1st, 2020. They have that scholarship every single year. So I would highly recommend that you apply if you so wish. There's only one winner per year, and the cost and the amount that they give out is $1,500, which is definitely a good chunk of change there. So I will highly recommend any of you to apply. They're also, for those that are interested in additional educational programs or what have you, for those that are, if you were to get into the junior co-step program or the senior co-step program, because then you will be looked upon as an active duty officer, then you are able to apply, if you're interested, into the Uniformed Services University of Health Sciences, what we call USIS, which is a university that's actually run by the federal government and training different health professions. But they also have certificate programs. So if you were to be in either junior co-step or senior co-step, and those of you that are interested in some educational certificates or what have you, that's available to you free of charge. I myself actually applied for the U.S. Naval War College. And actually, I was in one of the certificate programs in the U.S. Naval War College, and very, very difficult program that they developed, looking at strategic things and what have you. And very, very hard work, my ad too, but that's available to you as well, free of charge. So for those of you that are interested in doing residencies after you graduate, I know it's for some of you, like, I just got accepted. What are you talking about? Well, yes, you may have just gotten accepted into the pharmacy program, but it's never too early to look into what you might be interested in doing afterwards. So for those of you that are interested in doing residencies, the residencies, there are a number of residency programs, of course, but I do wanted to inform you that the Indian Health Service have a pretty lengthy list of residency programs throughout the country. And I'll be providing that as well coming up. The Federal Bureau of Prisons, which is operated under the Department of Justice, they have one residency program, and I'll be talking a little bit about that. And then also for those of you that are interested in doing fellowships, NIH have an excellent 2 years pharmacy fellowship program. And you're welcome to take a look at that. Of course, if you were to get into the NIH fellowship program, I think you will actually be qualified to apply for the NIH student loan repayment program. So there's some connection there. And this is a list of sites within the Indian Health Service in terms of residencies. And there are a couple of sites that they have PGY1 and 2, but the vast majority are just PGY1. So there's 14 different sites here on this slide, and there's also additional sites here on this slide here as well. And so, like I said, the sites that actually have PGY1 and 2 is the Northern Navajo Medical Center and the White River Indian Health Service Hospital. So those two sites, they have PGY1 and 2. Now for the PGY1 under the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the site is located in North Carolina. This facility, it's pretty much the inmate population there are very, very sick. They have chronic diseases, and so that's why it's a very big facility, and there is a residency there. The pharmacy department is huge. Like I listed out here, there's 15 pharmacists and 10 technicians. 10 pharmacy technicians. It's a lot. It's a huge department. And then, and that's it from me. Oh, before going to Q's and A's, I do want to say that for the Junior Co-Step program, I do want to stress the Junior Co-Step program, I forgot to mention this during the Junior Co-Step section. Who would be eligible to apply? Well, you have to finish your first year. I mean, let's say there's six years of pharmacy program, right? 6 years. You have to finish your 3rd year of pharmacy program, which is the first professional pharmacy year that you have to. So let's say, for example, you just finished it last month in May. You're eligible to apply now for the Junior Co-Step program. And those that are further along the line, you're welcome to apply as well. So that's one of the major criteria. For the Senior Co-Step program, the Senior Co-Step program, like I said, if you get accepted, your last year, you'll have a salary and get a military rank and so forth and so forth. When would be the time frame to apply? So right now, let's say you just wrapped up your 4th year of your pharmacy program, which would be your 2nd professional year, I guess, P2s. And you're heading into P3, which is your 5th year pharmacy program in the fall. This is the time for you to apply because it takes actually a whole year for the Senior Co-Step program. Because like I said, they do a lot of background check, and the federal government time frame, it takes a long time. So this would, if you fit into that criteria, this is the time for you to apply. And you will find out in your P3 or your 5th year pharmacy program whether you are accepted or not. So by the May, June of the starting period of your 6th year or your final year of pharmacy school or P4, that's when you actually will begin the Senior Co-Step program. So I hope that will help clarify in terms of the time frame. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Carl, and this is the Q's and A's. So And
I asked her questions, and some of the other students are asking questions on the chat. So if you check the
okay,
chat, you can see some
sure.
of the questions. It might be easier that way.
Okay. So anyone have any questions or regarding what have you, feel free to ask away.
So the one I asked was about the senior co-step program. Are there any, now when does that start specifically, the senior co-step? Does that start
So the
during
senior
the,
co-step program, if you were to, so let's just make believe, right? So you're interested in applying, right? And you just finish your fourth year, like I said, your fourth year of pharmacy program or P2, right? You have 2 years of pharmacy school left, starting in this coming fall. This is the time for you to apply for the senior co-step program if you are interested. Because if you miss the window, you will not have another opportunity to apply. Because come your 5th year or P3, when you finish that up, you only got 1 year of your pharmacy education left, which would be your rotations year, the year of rotations. And so by that time, it's too late. You have missed the time frame or timeline.
so the senior co-step program is during their last year?
Correct. It's during their last year of pharmacy school when you're on your rotations, and the senior co-step program, what it is basically you get paid. You get paid in being a full-time student, being a full-time pharmacy student, and then after you finish your senior year, your final year of pharmacy school, and you graduate. Well, now you have a 2 years obligation to pay it back, if you will, in terms of your time. So that's really what senior co-step program is.
So do they have to do anything during the senior co-step program? Do they have to be sent?
No,
Do they have to do a rotation at any
no,
facility?
nothing. There's no the only requirement. The only requirement is that you have to give back 2 years after you graduate.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's say you know what, you got another job lined up after you graduated with wherever. Well, you can't. You have a legal obligation to complete the 2 years that you signed in the document that you're willing to give back to the United States, to the country, after you graduate from pharmacy school.
Right.
So if you have other job offers, you can't take those.
Okay. Macy, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I can ask it verbally too. You mentioned earlier about deployment being a component of if we were to decide to choose a career path in this field. I wanted to clarify that deployment doesn't mean active duty military deployment. In this sense, it just means to be reassigned to a different location, somewhere possibly not in New York State, let's just say, and then we just work in that area and then we return back home. There's no connotation associated with active duty, correct?
Well, I'm not sure I get the so being on deployment, you would not be, so let's say for example, and I'll give you my example. So I work in New York State. I'm an active duty service personnel within the U.S. Public Health Service officer as an officer. So there is a COVID-19 mission right now for the pandemic.
Correct.
Well, I got deployed to go down to Texas earlier this year because I don't know if you were aware or not that at the beginning of the year, there were different cruise lines that had those that go on a cruise got infected with COVID-19. And they had to be evacuated from cruise lines. And so I provided coordination and assistance and all that stuff on that end. So that was my role. Now, the roles varies dramatically. Another colleague of mine within CMS, who was also a public health service officer, she got deployed. She's a physician assistant. She got deployed to Washington State. I don't know if you were aware at that time where there was an outbreak in one of the long-term facility in Washington State. And so, she got deployed to provide clinical care, patient care for those the long-term for those basically senior citizens were in that long-term care facility that were infected with COVID-19. So the roles varies dramatically and tremendously. I mean, another officer that's actually on my team got deployed to Japan. Why Japan? Because at that time, Japan it was a hot mess. And so they were trying to figure out and how to repatriate American citizens from Japan back to the United States. And some of them, they were infected with COVID-19. So the roles varies a lot. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
So if we do get deployed, it'd definitely be within the scope of the pharmacy field.
No, it does not.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I said, my role was not in the clinical pharmacy capacity. I was providing coordination and assistance. So I was not seeing patients. I was not filling out prescriptions or what have you, things of that nature. I was not doing any of that. So the roles can vary depending on each deployment is different. I can also say that when I was deployed to West Africa for the Ebola virus back in 2015, I was meeting with officials from WHO, the Ministry of Health in Liberia, and in trying to coordinate care for those that were infected with Ebola, what have you. So the roles varies dramatically, and depending also on what the situation is and what the mission is. So each mission is very different.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much.
Sure, my pleasure.
Paul, you had a question? Paul Stage, you still here?
Yep. Senior co-step. So we accept senior co-step. We have our P4 year, and then you said we start working the day after graduation. Does that mean we start working prior to our licensing exams?
Yes, that is correct. You actually, within the federal government, this is interesting. Being part of the federal government, because obviously you have to graduate, then you can be eligible to take the NAPLAX, right? The board exam and the law exam and so forth and so forth. You, under the federal government, you are given a whole year to get a pharmacy license. Even though you're getting paid on as a pharmacist level. So that's an interesting part. So the federal government provides flexibility for those that want to serve the country. And so it's a little bit different from the civilian world, a little bit different. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Christina Chang, did you have a question to ask, or did you understand what he was talking about?
My question was about the junior co-step program, because from what you said, we have to complete at least 1 year of pharmacy school in order to apply. So does that mean technically we have to be P2 students in order to apply to the junior co-step program?
P1, right? So P1, technically you have to finish your P1, which is, like I said, there's 6 years, right? So you have to finish your 3rd year, right, and then you're eligible.
You would be a P2.
So by the time you P2, you will find out if you got accepted into the program or not. So when you actually do get accepted, then during your P2, after you finish P2, your summer between P2 and P3, that's when that summer internship, the junior co-step program, comes into effect. If you get accepted, I mean,
so if they're a P1 now, they should apply now for that P2
correct
position.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It comes a year ahead of time. Yeah.
Right. Yep. That is exactly it. And in terms of the agencies, you can put down your preferences, what preference you may want. And but I will always say this, right? We always hear, you know, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. Well, if you only put Buffalo, if you only put New York State, I will say that the chance of you getting into the program is actually not very high at all, because what you're limiting yourself. So the program is nationwide. There's sites all over the country. And may I also say that you get paid for it. So it's not like this is a volunteer position or volunteer program. So they pay you to basically to be part of the other parts of the country. So I would definitely recommend that don't limit yourself, put down open in terms of whichever agency that may be. Try something new, try something different. As a student, I think this is the time to try it out. And why not?
Emily Deep, did they answer your question?
I just wanted to clarify for the senior co-step program, for those 2 years following your graduation that you have to obligated to work for the public health safety, are those 2 years paid, or was the
Yes.
$60K graduation?
It is paid. It's
Okay.
I mean, what you like, it's definitely paid. And the paid those 2 years of obligation. What the obligation is not financial. It's your time. You're obligated to serve your country for 2 years.
Okay.
So, like I said, you know, if you have some other job opportunities or what have you, you have to give that up. So that's what you're giving up. You're going to get paid as a pharmacist. Period. Paid wise is a non-issue. It's the time. So.
If I can give you an analogy, my son, who was in cybersecurity at the MBA program, he got a federal scholarship from Homeland Security, and he had to do 2 years with the federal government to pay it back. He's been there almost 3 years, and he absolutely loves it. He's in Arlington, Virginia.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And the pay
Great example there, Carl.
Yeah.
Thank
Well, he's not United States Public Health Service, but he's now a cybersecurity analyst for Homeland Security. So he loves what he does.
That's cool.
I think Anthony Yan, you had a question?
Yes. So my question is, do you have to be an American citizen to apply for this?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, you're just like because you're given a commission from the White House. So the Congress have to approve it. So it's a very, very lengthy process. So, and background check, the whole 9 yards. You're working for the highest level of government, the U.S. federal government. So you have to be a U.S. citizen. That's without a doubt.
Thank you.
Let's go back to Macy Meng real quick, because she had a good question here.
Yeah, so this question is kind of specific to my situation. I'm currently a dual degree student. I completed my P1 year, and I'm going to this year be going to complete my MBA year. I know if I wasn't completing the dual degree program, that technically I wouldn't have the time to apply for the junior co-step. But since I am, would I be eligible to apply, since it does take a year for that application to process?
Yeah. So the then becomes, would you have free time available during the summer?
Okay, I see. Okay,
Yep, that's where it comes down to. So
got it. Thank you.
sure.
Paul, you had another question? Paul Stage?
Yeah, I think I have two now. So the pay for the 2 years commitment or longer is at military grade pay levels, right? So it's not that you're, so we would still get that $65,000 after graduation per year.
No, that amount is due to you while you are a full-time student. So it doesn't have to do with that amount that I put in there. That amount, it's you're getting paid basically while working. I mean, sorry, while being a student.
Sure, but it's based off of military pay grade levels, right? So
correct. Exactly.
Would we be the same pay grade after graduation?
No, you would not. It would be higher.
And then the other question was,
yeah.
Yes,
Do
go
we
ahead.
have international deployments? You mentioned you had international deployments. Are those available for us as well, or is it domestic for this program?
For which program? I'm sorry.
Junior or senior co-step?
No, you will not be deployed while you are a student. They're not going to deploy students, so you don't have to worry about that. That's not something you have to worry about. Or
How about after graduation?
well, after you so for the senior co-step program, right? So after graduation, you're coming online as an active duty service personnel or service officer. Then yes, you would be. If there is a mission, then there's a need for you to deploy. Then you're obligated to deploy because, like I said, you're serving the country, and the country needs you. So so then you would be deploying, like I was overseas or domestic, whatever. Obviously, we're not part of the Space Force, so we're not deploying to Mars or the moon. But if there is a need out there, then we go. So that's basically what you sign up for. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Corian, you had a question?
Training is it's part of your training. So
Corian has.
Yep, I had a follow-up to Paul and Macy's question. I understand we'll be deployed, but would we ever be deployed for combat or in the time of war?
No. Our training is in pharmacy. We are always that's our professional background. We're not used as soldiers because that's not our training. That's not our role. We might have to provide care for soldiers, perhaps. Like I said about that pharmacist that's permanently stationed at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. So in that way, but of course that's not an deployment role. That's your regular job type of role. But we will never be deployed as a combat soldier. That's not who we are. That's not what we do.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And of course, also I want to add a caveat is looking at the pandemic, the diseases kill a whole lot more people than any wars, always. So we have a much tougher fight than any wars at period. So, and of course, as you know, right now we're still in the midst of that pandemic, as an example.
Great. Well, Jerry, I know you got another meeting you got to run to, and I want to thank you very much for this. This is very informative. I learned a lot today, and I hope a lot of the students did too. And this looks like a great area to go into. So,
thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Carl, and thank you all for joining me. I appreciate the opportunity. I do actually have another meeting at 3, so thank you, Carl, for the reminder. And wish you all safe and sound, and have fun with your pharmacy program. It's I still reminisce on some of the great times that I had when I was a student. So thank you all and take care.
okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.